What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty P with another episode of the Steelers War Room on our Steelers Touching Under channel. We are talking all things player cuts, the breaking news out of the Steelers. We're talking, is this an impact from the Steelers coaches? And we're talking, how does this impact the Steelers free agency and draft status? Because these cuts say a lot very quickly. All of them kind of predictable, but they do say a lot very quickly, as I mentioned. What's up, Jay Devil? What's up, Reginald Rivers? Thanks very much for joining me in the live chat. What's up from Bartlett, Tennessee? I think that's right. When I get the acronyms for the states of the US, right? Hopefully that's right. Reginald, correct me if I'm wrong. As always, you guys are always in there live. Thank you so much for joining me. Load up any questions you've got as well. We've got Steel Nation Australia, Marky D in there. He's done a show on this as well with the cuts. Go check that out on this channel. On his channel after this. But wanted to come back out to you guys with it quickly. Save me recording a show. Here's my lunch break. So we are going to keep it pretty short, sweet, and sharp. Because it is really exciting what is going on. I know that seems weird. Why are we celebrating guys losing their job? But we're Steel fans. And as Steel fans, most of us, if not all of us, would watch the Super Bowl. You don't want to be in a Super Bowl, you've got to get things right. Now, that starts with three blokes that leave the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. You've got the punter, Presley Harvin III, who was so and everywhere. Bring on Torrey Taylor out of Iowa, I say, in the 6th round in this draft. But anyway, bye-bye Presley Harvin III. And bye-bye Chooks, who would prefer to bend the knee, preferred to get on the ground and kneel out a game, than go on and try and win to the last second. Bye-bye, you're out. See you later, alligator. Now, we'll talk about those guys. We're going to talk about a number of things as well. As I mentioned, are those new coaches already making an impact? We've had a new QB coach in, right? How is he impacting with Mitch Trubisky being cut? We'll talk about as well around the offensive assistant and the run game. Okorafor doesn't match that aggressiveness. That's half the reason he's out. It's also out because he's got issues and he's also not worth the money. So we're going to talk about the money. Steelers are starting their spring cleaning. And then, of course, Presley Harvin. The play's not been worth it. He is a punter. He is cheap. He was a 7th-round draft pick. He was on a rookie deal. You don't lose anything by getting rid of him. They're familiar with Brad Wing. They could start that bloke if they wanted to. So it's all goodness in a way in terms of how the Steelers are refreshing their team going into 2024. The saying it's Trubisky. Well, I called it risky business. I called him Bisky business when he came in because, quite honestly, I thought it was an issue. I know Marky D calls him Trubisky. I like Trubisky, though. It's not good. Look, the bloke is a human being as well. He seems like a great guy. He seems like he's got a happy young family, all those good things. It just never worked out for him with the Steelers. And maybe that's a Matt Canada thing. Maybe it's not. I don't think it worked out at the Bears. I think the guy was overdrafted, and I think that hurt his development. I think he's a sort of player where if he'd sat a year, he would have been a lot better in the league. And I think as a result, he struggled to actually be able to get used to NFL offenses and be able to do more than what he is in college. So, we've seen Baker go through struggles as well, and he's come out the other side. But Baker was a much better prospect coming out than Mitch Trubisky. Baker had played against better competition, all those things. So it is really interesting in terms of how this impacts the Steelers and their sort of salary cap as well. So that's one of the areas that I'll delve into super, super quickly because it is pretty key, right? Now, over the cap haven't updated their contracts yet. The Steelers will eat a $4.6 million cap hit this year, the dead cap hit with the cutting of Mitch Trubisky. But they save almost $3 million, right? The Steelers fans don't want him on the roster, so you may as well get what you can by cutting him. But the bonus as well is that he was contracted for 2025. So with Mitch Trubisky, you save $6 million next year, you only get a $2.3 million cap hit. So Steelers basically cop let's call it about a $6 million cap hit, 2.3 plus the full mention there. So yeah, you've got $6.9 million cap hit, but they save $9 million over 2 years. Really, really key, particularly next year, particularly when they've got a re-sign, guys. What's up, Fuzzy Monkey? Bring back Trubisky. I love it. Well, I actually don't. I do not want to bring back Trubisky. But then you go into Chooks Okorafor. So it's a $3 million dead cap hit this year. They save $8.7 million. He was one of the first guys I said you can cut him. Trubisky, a couple other guys make $15 million very, very quickly for that roster to fill a top corner or to fill a top tackle need. Immediately get that with Chooks. As I say, you save $8.7 million raw money or net money on the cap this year. And then next year, with a Okorafor gone as well, it doesn't really affect him because he wasn't on the roster. He was at the end of that deal, but you don't have to face a situation with do you sign him, do you not? How does he perform? How does he not? So the Steelers immediately make moves to put about roughly 12 million on their roster just in Okorafor and Trubisky combined. Then you bring in Presley Harvin. I don't really want to talk about the Steelers gaining money on the roster because they are going to need a punter. It's not like that, tackle or quarterback where they've got other guys. But it does mean that at least the Steelers now can go out and draft someone or get someone young or get someone for vet minimum, and they can improve that position overall. So there's no real point deeply talking about how much money they get with Presley Harvin going. It's only a $20,000 cap hit if anyone's worried about that. It saves them $1 million. But as I said, they're going to need to spend at least that on it. Like it's 1.1 plus for a vet minimum. So it doesn't really do anything with the cap space. But the cap space by getting rid of Okorafor might be enough to get Mason Rudolph at 8.759 million. Yeah, that's it. Still Reaper. Totally. That is one of the other predicted cuts that I said you can save 10 million very, very quickly by Allen Robinson. Not JPJ. I was going to say, sorry, Pat P as well is another guy that I'd expect you probably see them make the move. They could still bring Pat P back. They're just not going to, they can cut Pat P. He's got a 9.7 million cap hit if you keep him. He's got a 2.925 dead cap hit. You can save yourself 6.8 million by cutting him. I think they do that. Again, that might be money that gets back Mason Rudolph, particularly who's rumored to want a fresh start. So these are some of the quick moves that the Steelers are making already. Reginald, they can make a heap. They actually can clear. I saw one stat that said if you actually restructure a lot of their contracts and you back end some stuff and you do a couple of voids, they could create over 100. I haven't sat there and gone through that deeply, but I have created 7 and 8 and stuff when I'm mucking around. And exactly, Marky D brings it up. You cut the players now, good faith for them to find other teams. I'm not sure Trubisky's going to have a bunch of people pining for him out there. I do think Okorafor is potentially there. I think Harvin will get tryouts with people. Harvin was someone that a lot of teams were interested in coming through the draft process. So maybe he's got some suitors out there as well. Jed Evil talks about Fields. I mean, I'm not going to hate it. I think I kind of prefer it to Tannehill. But if we're going to bring in Fields, I feel like you just trade up in the draft and go get a guy. You may as well. I mean, he's not got the best habits, Fields. What's up, Pepper? What's up, Pat Pepper? Trubisky is only a backup now. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even have him as a backup. He's not my dude. He can go make some money in the Canadian Football League or the XFL or whatever, but I'm not having him. However, if the Bucks re-sign Baker, he could be an interesting backup to Baker Mayfield because I don't feel like you'd have to change your offense particularly much. And I think that's what the core of this is as well. It's not just Mitch Trubisky's failures in a Steelers jersey. It's actually how does he fit with that Arthur Smith offense? Yes, Arthur Smith likes a mobile guy. But Trubisky, you look at the Arthur Smith offense, it's about putting guys into space to make those quick catches. Trubisky relies on people going to where he throws the ball rather than him throwing to that open receiver. Well, that's at least how he plays, even if that's not how he meant to. So it is kind of interesting. Yeah, Ryan, I mean, I called Mason Cole a quick cut too. The thing about that, if they cut Mason Cole, is that if they cut Mason Cole, they better have a solution if they can't get who they want in the draft, right? So it needs to be either you're dead set that Jackson Powers Johnson is there at 20, you're picking him, or you're trading back if he's not there, and you're picking Joe Frazier, not the boxer. You're picking up Zach Frazier at the back end of the first, early second, because you're relying everything then when it comes to draft on the center. There's very few centers that are around the league and available. We can look at them. There's actually a show I plan doing this week on that very note. But I do think Mason Cole, if we just look at it, the raw numbers around Mason Cole and moving him on, it's only a $1.4 million dead cap hit. You can save yourself $4 million as well. You create $4 million in space. Again, between Okorafor, Allen Robinson, Trubisky, and if you cut Cole, you can give yourself $20 million. That puts you in a really good spot to go re-sign Mason Rudolph or get in another quarterback, even if it is Tannehill. I don't love the idea with Tannehill. I don't hate it either, but I just don't think it helps you all. But yeah, I think it is an interesting situation the Steelers find themselves in. I tend to agree with Steelers Reaper. Steelers Reaper. I tend to agree that drafting for Fields is not like, I don't know what we're getting. Like the same evaluators brought in Mitch Trubisky. Look at him. They've now brought in Fields, who I think is a more athletic and talented Trubisky in many ways. I actually think he's got way better arm. He could be more accurate in the right offense. But he had weapons there last year. And guys like Darnell Mooney, who's the guy they got out of the Panthers? Not Curtis Samuel. Who meant to blank on the guy that they got out there? DJ Moore. He had some weapons there, and I don't think he used them remotely as much. So that's kind of the interesting situation. That's it, Marky. We're freeing up all this money so we can do a mega trade to the Browns to bring in Myles Garrett, and then we can finally win a Defensive Player of the Year award week in, week out. That's what it is. Year in, year out, I should say. So is interesting, those cuts. I definitely think it's gonna, there's been different parts of the fan base that feel different things about each of the guys. But I think most people are pretty out on Trubisky. I think most people are kind of going, he's not the guy. Move on. Let's see how it develops from here. If you look at the centers that are available in free agency, there is one that I would be kind of keen with the Steelers going after, and they might have their eye on him as well. It's Connor Williams, who was a Longhorn. That's how I'm aware of him. Got drafted into the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken. Was a center this year for the Dolphins. He had an average pay per year on his last deal of $7 million. He's 27, so he's pretty young as well. So that's pretty exciting. Andre James is not a bad option from the Raiders. Otherwise, I don't really like a lot of the other options that are there around the league. Lloyd Cushenberry's out there, but I think he's going to demand too much if you look at average pay per year. If you look at in terms of age, he's one of the better younger guys. Connor McGovern's out there. Some people are kind of open to him. J.C. Hassenauer is actually going to be out there as well. But you've got Tyler, but I can never say this guy's last name, but Bidatz out of Cowboys. They'll re-sign him. But if I'm going to bring in anyone and I'm going to spend $9 million or something anywhere between $6 and $9 million on a center, I would bring in Connor Williams. I think he's the most pro-ready guy. But the thing is, there's less upside to him over time. The Steelers are still going to, if they don't draft a center this year, they need to draft one in the future. And this year, the top 3 centers are actually pretty darn good. So maybe you just go and bite the bullet and you go and do it now. Yeah, Ryan, I could see Larry O gone as well. I think with Larry O, the situation kind of is his dead cap hit is pretty freaking high. And then the cost to actually fill that role, you're kind of worth seeing if you can bring him in. Like you have copper dead cap hit of $7 million. You do save yourself $6 million. So my mind, Ogunjobi is a cut, particularly like it's hard because Leal had a crap season this year. But if Ogunjobi, by cutting him, you can bring in a key new tackle, a top quality tackle, or you can bring in that center, or you can bring in a top quality corner. They're the kind of the 3 caveats that I would give to being able to cut Ogunjobi. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard to see the sort of opportunity cost or the cost benefit. I think of doing that a little bit. It's my only kind of caveat on Ogunjobi. Reaper says maybe we need an edge guy. Parsons says what? Yeah, maybe. Maybe we with number 20 we go get Latu or Jared Verse or someone like that. Maybe that's what we need to do. Yeah, I agree, Pepper. I mean, Parsons needs to focus on trying to have TJ Watt numbers before he goes around slamming TJ Watt. I mean, just what a joke. Still Nation of Australia says, go Rudolph. Yeah, I'm keen. A little reindeer from Pepper. All right, so I wanted to do the second point I wanted to cover off in our quick sort of 30-minute show is around new coaches already making impact. Let's say we got a new quarterback coach. Talk a little bit about that. We got a new offensive assistant who is someone that is very, very clear on running the football, blocking up front, quality play. So I think from that perspective, he's definitely making an impact. And you've got a new wide receivers coach. He will be looking at how you optimize the wide receivers, and he'll be giving his perspective on things like the quarterback room, the blocking that needs to go on from wide receivers or blocking from the line to be able to create space for the wide receivers. And there's some of the things that quite quickly already start to feed in some of the decisions you're seeing made. So the Steelers are doing that spring cleaning, getting things ready for the opening day, kind of to use that analogy. So I do actually think that they're already making an impact. Welcome, JJ52. Been a while since seeing the live chat. Good to have you, mate. Happy seeing you in the comments, of course. Pepper says, we all know about how I feel about the reindeer. Yeah. So I kind of got into it a little bit there around free agency. The Steelers, so I've been a big talker about this. It's a big theme of some of the content we do on the channel. To me, there are some positions you are better to fill in free agency, and some positions you're better to fill through the draft. E.g., so cornerback, I think it can be very hit and miss in the draft. I think a decent quarterback in free agency is a smart move. You can get reliable talent. Yes, you do have to spend the money. Center, a position that there's always 2 or 3 guys in every free agency that are worth considering, but at some point you've got to get younger at a key position, and you've got to try and bring in and develop a guy that can be that linchpin for your offensive line. And the Steelers historically have been really good at that, considering their back history of guys from Pouncey to Webster, all the guys in the middle. I don't need to go through name by name there, right? J Devil, I am so for it. It's not funny. I love Justin Herbert. I think he's a gun. It's just what you'd have to give up would kill us. And we can't protect him. We don't have the line to protect him. That's my other problem. Wait till next year when you've got all this dead cap space cleared and we can protect him. I'd rate him so highly. But yeah, going back to the sort of mix. So then you've got positions like tackle. I think you can spend money on a tackle and get a lot better really quickly. And there's less, you don't have to worry about as much development time through the draft or any of those things. So that is another key position. Wide receiver is another one, but wide receiver, you've got to spend a heap of money. So sometimes it's more cost effective to draft the bloke. Yeah, exactly. We got the halves again. You guys are cracking me up. I more want to be in the live chat than do the show. And load up any questions too. Keen to answer any questions before we wrap it up. I'll try and get to them pretty quickly. So yeah, from free agent strategy perspective, obviously quarterback's an issue. Running back's a position you're better to go after in the draft. That's a clear thing. Same as defensive end. You're kind of better to go after that in free agency often, but outside linebacker is someone you can pick up in the draft. We saw that last year with Nick Herbig. Tight end can be both spots, but where the Steelers are at right now, I think tight end's a draft need, not necessarily a free agent need. You're going to overpay there. Punter, that'll be interesting to see now they've cut Harvin. But again, why not go after a guy you can develop, a guy and you can draft that guy between the 5th and the 7th, depending on how good he is. I think Taylor, the guy I like, Torrey Taylor out of Iowa, I think he'll go back into the 6th at this rate. So he's cheaper, you get him there. Quarterback, you're almost always better to try that guy in the draft as well. So there's just these different positions. And like as Pepper says, it can be just unluck sometimes in terms of how it develops or who faults to you. But I think if the Steelers, we know they need a tackle, we know they need a corner. Those two positions, there's less options at tackle in free agency, but you can be a bit more reliable in the play, right? So if you're closer to winning a Super Bowl, that's what the move you need to make. Where the Steelers are at, I'd go in the draft and get someone at tackle. At corner, I kind of draft a mid-corner, develop that guy. We've already got JPJ, we've got Corey Trice, Darius Rushers there as well. But when you've got a free agent, you can go and get a top free agent to pair with Joey Porter Jr. We want someone experienced to pair with Joey Porter Jr. You can't have the oldest guy in the room being an average free agent. There needs to be a top quality guy in there that Minka and the new strong safety, because I think they're going to be after a new strong safety that they can feed off. Steelers Reaper says, if they draft an OT and center who can step in right away, will Tomlin play them and pull? Yeah, that's the hard thing. I think center he'll be forced to, because I think they'll move Mason Cole on. The other tackle will be interesting. It might be start Broderick at right for the first 2 or 3 games, which I don't like, and just move him to left. But then they might have learned from the Broderick situation as well. The other thing, though, there's a case for and against, right? And I could probably spend a whole video for 20 minutes talking about this. But let's say you start Broderick and let's say it's Tyler Guyton or the Morgan out of Arizona at right tackle. And then that guy, that draft pick gets injured the first few games. Then suddenly Broderick Jones is back to right tackle because Dan Moore's the left tackle. So, because Dan Moore doesn't really play right tackle. So the interesting, really the key to that question is how well can Dan Moore play right tackle in preseason? And how can he get adjusted to that over the offseason? Because if he can do that, then that gives the Steelers options to start that rookie right out of the gate. If they can't, then that creates a question. And again, this might be why you might see in that second wave of free agency after the draft, you might actually see the Steelers go get a tackle as someone's cut. because that might be the solution to that problem. But it's a great question. It's a great concept. I will try and put out some content on that specifically, Steelers Reaper, because it's a very interesting situation. I probably will wait till I might do one now, but I want to revisit this after the draft because that's a really, really good question. I love that question. Awesome. This is why I like doing the lives. I love the questions. Jedel says Jim wants Pickett instead. Harville's son on the Seattle. Yeah, I saw that. That was interesting. How are you feeling ILB? Yeah, so depends on the year. This year, though, my perspective is you draft the guy. Really deep linebacker class, guys like will be available in the third, guys like Jay Ford, Junior Colson, Peyton Wilson. I tweeted out yesterday where I got Peyton Wilson at like pick, I think it was 120. I got Peyton Wilson. He's 85th best prospect according to Pro Football Network's mock draft. But if you look at the Steelers right now at inside linebacker, they're probably going to find a way to bring back Quan. They've got Holcomb. Alana Robinson's on contract. Mark Robinson's there developmental. You could probably bring Jack back for super cheap if you wanted. I think you'd be keen to do it. But better bring him through the offseason so you can work out how you're going to use him. What's the one thing missing in that group? It's a young stud that you can develop. And the cool thing about bringing in an inside linebacker now in the third round, even if you've got to trade back in, is that guy can develop behind Quan, Holcomb, and Roberts. Now, Holcomb might struggle to be back game one as well, so it's probably going to be Quan and A-Rob, provided you bring Quan back. But why not bring in that inside linebacker now? Or you could trade for a young guy like a Chad Muma, for example, who I really liked coming out of college, who plays at Jacksonville Jaguars. You need to get a young guy that then can develop for, it doesn't have to be for a year, but can learn the Steelers defense through the 4, 6, 8 weeks, basically up until their bye. And then you can like insert him in as a starter. That's what I would love to see. Like develop that guy properly and develop him as a 4 and 5 year guy, right? Particularly if you can tag him. So I kind of see inside linebacker in this situation Steelers find themselves in. I see it as a draft need, not as a free agent need. Unless someone got cut, really, but if it's a young stud is getting cut, then there's either character issues, off the field issues, other situations. People talk about Patrick Queen. I think he'll either be resigned by the Ravens to be that duo with Roquan Smith, or someone else will sign him. There's no point, in us going from he's going to be too expensive, and we don't have the cap, particularly with a dead cap number we're hitting. Pepper says, "So we want to run Kenny off." Funny. Yeah, I'm for KP8 too. I'm keen for KP8. One more crack at it. If he gets injured again and the jury's out halfway through the season, then it's time to move on. But Kenny gets the go. I'm with Daredevil on that one. Kenny gets the go. So Reginald, I think you're saying draft CB O-line, interior O-line, DL wide receiver. Yeah, I don't mind that. That could be cool. Can anyone finish a rookie contract? I don't know. Presley Harvin couldn't. Trade for Kevin Durant. Steelers are the only team in professional sports he's not played for at this point, right? Agree, market here. We can't give up on Kenny. Yeah, and that's the thing. People talk about mobility, and this is why I did the video on Tannehill. Like, I don't hate it, and maybe he's a good backup to Pickett. But Pickett, with his movement, without like the problem with Desmond Ridder was that he moves before he throws. Kenny looks to throw as he moves. There's a difference between the two, and that's why I think Kenny could be very successful in Arthur Smith's offense. And they didn't bring in Arthur Smith to immediately go against Kenny Pickett. That's one thing I said when I did the show about which quarterback fits who. Now, I said no quarterback fully fits Arthur Smith's offense, but Kenny Pickett fits it the best out of the quarterbacks that were on the roster. And he's a guy that can learn that Arthur Smith system. And he should do well in Arthur Smith's system because of the focus on the run game, because of the focus on the tight ends. How many times as Steel fans this season, we talked so much hype on this channel. There's so many. I remember a lot of people in the live chat right now. We talked about it particularly. Like we talked about the cool opportunity to bring Freiermuth in and to bring in the leverage down on Washington and what would Connor Hayward do? We saw none of that in the Matt Canada offense. Yet he goes, and then Pat Freiermuth has a career best game. So I'm really excited for how Arthur Smith can use his tight ends because Jonnu Smith got 1,000 yards in that offense to the point that Patriots put like a $20+ million a year contract on him. Like huge money, huge performance. This is what's going to be exciting about Arthur Smith. Yeah, I think it will be too. Between Najee and particularly if they don't do the 5th-year option on Najee, right? They got up till May 2nd to do that. If they don't do that, Najee's fighting for a new contract either at Steelers or elsewhere, and you got Warren, it's going to be good. Any punters from down under? Yeah. There's a few in the college process, but I don't know. I like the kid out of Iowa. I like the Tory Taylor kid. I'd be cool if the Steelers went and draft for Dixon out of Seattle. Obviously, he's an Aussie, played with the Longhorns. I actually went to university with his sister. So, yeah, I knew about him pretty early on. But there's heaps of punters. The guy, Mitch, who played in the Super Bowl, he played pretty well, but they're not going to get rid of him. I actually like Tommy Townsend, who was on the opposing teams, on the Kansas City. I actually quite like Tommy Townsend. He's my punter in Madden at the moment. Jedel said Mark's last prediction might happen this season with Smith at OC too. Yeah, that's it. I remember that last year. I was on it. Jer says bring back Berry. Pepper talks about the much maligned. That's a good thing. I'll use that in the top. Pepper, you let me know in the live chat. Do I have permission to use that when I do a show on Najee Harris's 5th-year option? Do you have permission? You let me know. Fuzzy Monkey. No, we're not going there. But yeah, it was we did a study group kind of thing. So yeah, but definitely really interesting guy, really, really nice guy from all accounts as well. I also played footy with a guy that played a bit of AFL, like sort of tag AFL Aussie rules football, a bit like flag football with him too. So knew different things. Yeah, it's still, yeah. So 1,000 for Najee, Warren have 700. Yeah, man, I totally see it. But also, the thing is, even if they're lighting it up and they're both like 500 early on in the season, and then you have a situation where, they're lighting it up, that opens up the pass game for Kenny Pickett as well. So Seals Reaper says, cheers, Pepper. Seals Reaper says, hypothetical, if KP had started and lost 31-17 to the Bills, how bad would the backlash have been? The Iron Team, the end zone. And see, I don't know. If Kenny Pickett loses 31-17 to the Bills, I'm kind of like, he went up against Josh Allen and a better team. Like, the Bills were a better team overall than the Steelers when you look at the Steelers' injuries. Like, if they hadn't have innocent, imagine if he lost 31-24, everyone would be hailing him as proving himself. So it's an interesting point you bring up, Reaper, in terms of whether KP8's ability and all of that sort of stuff in terms of how he'd be viewed with certain things. I like it, man. Reaper, you're on fire. Neither can I, Pepper. My own one is like, what's the 5th-year option number going to be? And if I'm not resigning the 5th-year option, I'm saying, Najee, we're not going to resign you to 5th year, but if you hit these benchmarks, this is the 2-year deal we're offering you on the table, or even 3-year deal. Yeah, I like Tory Taylor, man. I like Tory Taylor out of Iowa. Najee needs big blokes. Yeah, so this is the thing, and this is what I said last year a lot. And Marky D and I talked about it on shows we did on this channel, a couple of appearances I made on Steeler Nation Australia, is that the line is built more toward a shifty running back like a Jalen Warren, not a Najee Harris. So, again, that'll be really telling in terms of what they do at the tackle position, in terms of where they want to go with this run game. And even if they're going to give Najee the 5th-year option, maybe the hint will be in what they do at tackle. He's a big bloke, that's for sure. We'll see, Fuzzy Monkey. That's an interesting concept about Darnell Washington. A lot of people thought that's what they were going to do. They were going to see if he could play tight end, and if he couldn't play tight end, they would move him to right tackle. It's funny, though, because if you actually look at where he blocks a lot of times on the left because he's got that partnership with Broderick Jones, which would be interesting if you drafted Amarius Mims, who seems to have dropped down the radar purely because he wasn't at Senior Bowl. That's the thing I love about Senior Bowl. There's all these guys you get to see that a lot of people are not on. And then their draft stock goes really, really high. And then the combine happens and all the young guys, all the guys that didn't go to Senior Bowl, it goes really high. And then it all kind of fizzles out a little bit. And then it gets to the pro days. And then everything crisscrosses. And then we start to get the draft rankings and the mock drafts. And we hear all these different things around the league. And then on draft day, things kind of fall somewhere in the middle of all of it. It's a weird time, the draft process. It's a very weird time. But, I mean, it's feasible. I mean, it's kind of how Villanueva became a tackle in the end. Darth Sniper Mike M. I got it right, yep. O-line 1, center tackle, corner 2, then tie between D-line and IRB, then punter 8. Yeah, see, this is the thing is that, I feel like you could follow this strategy exactly, right? But I still think if whoever you don't draft a corner or tackle, you're going to need that bloke, especially now they've cut a core for. If you're not across that one, but you probably are. But then inside linebacker, you probably would need to move back up from the 4th and into the 3rd to get a guy, which I'm cool with. I've said on the Global Perspective shows that we're doing, there's another one coming out tonight on some draft prospects, or tonight, Australian time, come out tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning for you guys in the US. I've talked about the fact that this is one of the years of the draft that, and I'll explore this narrative between now and the draft too. I'll go deeper into it, but why it makes sense to draft, to trade back into this year's draft, which is a lot to do with the fact you've got experienced guys that haven't shifted colleges every other year with the portal, guys that are veterans through the 4 and 5 years and up to 6 years because of the COVID year the COVID exemption as well. So it is interesting. I'm into trading back in, which I think you would have to do to get quality at the 4 positions or 5 if you can count center that you're talking about, Darth Sniper. But I like it. I like the order. I'm all for the order. We'll go O-line with 1 and 2. Yeah, it is. There's guys pretty late going back into the 2nd and the 3rd. But like even Quinyon Mitchell, who, really high coming out of the Senior Bowl, people talking about top 10. There's actually, if you look at 2 or 3 corners ahead of him on the overall rankings. I got him at 30 last night in a mock draft. So, and that is a mock draft, I get it. But usually he's out by pick 12, 13. So it will be interesting to see where corners go. But as when I did a live, it was last week's live that I did, I talked about when I went through it'll be a week and a half ago. It was the Saturday one I did. But I talked about the top draft prospect rankings. We went through DJ's top 50. If you look at DJ's top 50, not necessarily the order they're going to go in, 10 of the top 18 were tackles. So if people pick corners, then they're leaving tackles out there. And if people are picking corners and they're picking tackles, then they're leaving wide receivers there. And the Steelers, wide receiver, a top round guy that falls, 5th-year option, then you can trade Deontay and get a corner or a tackle. They're all options that you could do. Jay, I like Cooper. I don't know whether the Steelers need to invest a first-round pick, and he will go in the first round or very, very early in the 2nd. That's my only thing about him. Rebound wide receiver there's not a lot of guys, and we'll wrap up the last few questions. There's not a heck ton of guys in free agency that I'm sitting there going, oh my God, that guy is going to improve the Steelers. Like, I'm just not. Like, I've seen some hype stuff out there on, YouTube land, and I don't fully agree with it. Particularly because the guys are expensive. Like Curtis Samuel and Odell Beckham Jr. is old, and Mike Evans will get retained by the Bucs, and it'll cost us too much. Michael Thomas is too slow from the Saints. The guy I really like that I think could be a really good fit for the Steelers, particularly in an Arthur Smith offense. Guy I've always kind of liked. He's 28. He's 6'4", 198 pounds, according to over the cap. Out of LSU is DJ Chalk, who's played with the Panthers, who's played with the Jaguars. I think they're the only 2 teams. Oh, and the Lions. He had 1 year at the Lions as well. Made a bit of money, probably cost you 6, maybe 7 million a year. You got away with that. He has roughly about 25 to 30 TDs in his career. Never had more than 1,000 yards. He's had 1,000 yards in 2019. The last 2 years in a row, he's had 500 yards. He was injured pretty much through 2021. He had 700 yards in 2020. So he's a guy I think you get on the cheap. He's a big wide receiver, so he'll work in the Arthur Smith offense. He could be really interesting. You need a lot of picks. You'd probably have to trade this year's first, next year's first, and DJ. Like, people are calling him the next Larry Fitzgerald. But hey, I mean, set you up for wide receiver for the next decade with Pickens, so maybe. It's kind of a good point. I think the thing about it, though, the way I see it, Darth Sniper, and I talked about this with Shannon, and I think we talked about in the show that I'm putting out tonight, Aussie time, is like the Steelers either have to get younger or get better at a position, or they need depth. And that's why they have all these needs. But I think as Steel fans, we're always like, oh, there's another position. Like, even if every position was decently fielded, another fan base would sit there and say, oh, yeah, we're feeling good. I don't think as Steel fans we ever feel good. I think we've been burnt too many times by random injuries and guys like Tuitt having personal situations and they don't play. Like, I think it's kind of funny with that scenario. But every team should be looking to get better. Every team, including Kansas City that just won the Super Bowl, every team's got to look at getting better. So I don't see it as a negative, but yeah, I think strong safety is the hidden one in who you're outlining. The Steelers have to fix that. And then Fuzzy Monkey says, center, corner, inside linebacker, if they drafted in that order, then the rest is a bonus. Yeah, I'll take that. But that's assuming that they fill tackle in free agency, right? Like, because right now we don't have a right tackle. So that's the only challenge with that situation. Because, like, well, ultimately, the Steelers will need a starting right tackle. So that's my only concern there around not going tackle. But then the other thing about not going tackle is, like, a lot of people are focusing on the top tackles this year because of the depth of them. One of the things that I'm really keen on doing between now and the draft is actually looking at who the mid-round guys are, because there's going to be some mid-round guys that fall. And then I know I skipped Reginald Rivers. I did hear that was happening. I hadn't seen anything posted till, there you go, 2 hours ago. Yeah, there you go. I missed it during my workday. Jared says, bring back, maybe. He might take it, man. But I heard he was pretty pissed off when he left the Steelers. So, no, I don't think he can. I don't know if he can tackle well enough, though. I like him as kind of that slot corner, like a dime safety. He's not a strong. Yeah, exactly. He's not a strong tackle. You said it. I just think the thing with Pat P, I'm cool with him bringing back as a third or fourth cornerback or a situational cornerback. They have to cut him first, though, and save the $7 million on him. It's not worth it. He's got to come back at the cheap. But I think he'll go. They might cut him, and he might go, hey, I want to try and get a Super Bowl. So he'll go off and do that. But with that, we might close it up for the show. Awesome live chat. Awesome amount of you guys in there, guys and gals. So good to see so many of you as well. Lots of good comments. I enjoyed talking with a lot of you yesterday in Marky D's Super Bowl live stream. As I said, tonight, a show will, Australian time, or for your morning in the US, there will be a show out on some draft prospects and some updates there that I was talking with Shannon White from the weekend for our global Steelers Global Perspective show or series that we have. J-Devil, before we say goodnight, yes, I think Levi will go too. I will update everyone. So Levi Wallace's cap situation, therefore we can see how the Steelers can get to over 25 million. Levi Wallace's cap situation will be, I knew this one, but he's kind of like been a bit forgotten with me lately. We're looking at this list. Levi Wallace, where is he? He's escaping the. Wait, was he off contract? He was off contract. Then they're not bringing him back. Yeah, what am I saying? Yeah, because he's not even on the 2024 list. Yeah, he's not on contract. I thought that. Thanks, Steelers Reaper. Shoot me any questions as well as always. And thanks, Marky D, for the good show. Have a good night, Darth. Yeah, Wallace don't have a contract. That's right. That's what I thought. I was like, man, am I missing someone? That's it. Smash the AFC, smash the Cowboys, and then that bloke that walks around my area in the Steelers shirt and the Cowboys hat, I can ask him, which teams are going for now? Crazy. But everyone, have a good night. Have a good afternoon for Jer and Marky D in Australia. Speak to you soon on the channel. As always, go Steelers.